Good evening and welcome to MetroFocus. I'm Rafael P. Roman. Federal prosecutors in New York City are looking into Donald Trump's inaugural committee as part of a wide-ranging investigation into possible money laundering, illegal contributions, and cash for access schemes. And now WNYC and ProPublica have found evidence of possible tax law violations by the inaugural committee. Joining us to talk about that evidence and about the broader federal investigation is Ilya Meritz, a reporter for WNYC. Ilya, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
So first of all, Ilya, what are the allegations against the Trump inaugural committee? What have federal prosecutors discovered, and what has your investigation discovered?
So first, maybe a little bit of context. Okay. Inaugural committees are 501c4 nonprofits, and for years, every time a new president comes in, they form an inaugural committee, and the committee's job is to pay for the balls and the concerts and the dinners that happen around the swearing in. The swearing in itself is paid for by the government, but all that other stuff is paid for by private donations. So Donald Trump's inaugural committee was noteworthy in a few key ways. For one, they raised twice as much money, basically, as the next most expensive inauguration. They also didn't set limits on who could give or how much they could give. This month, we learned that New York prosecutors have issued a subpoena to the inaugural committee, and they're looking for evidence of cash for access schemes. They want to know where the money came from, where the money went. They suspect there could have been straw donors. Non-Americans are not allowed to give, but we know of at least one instance where a Ukrainian politician did give money to the inaugural committee. So that's what their investigation is all about. In addition to that, there are just more questions swirling around how they made decisions.
So it was the fact that they raised so much money, and the other things that you mentioned, those were like red flags for the federal prosecutors and for you?
Sure. I mean,
those were the things?
One of the key figures in the inaugural committee was Rick Gates. He was deputy chairman for the Trump campaign and later got snagged in Robert Mueller's probe and pleaded guilty to conspiracy, and he's cooperating with law enforcement. So that was another red flag.
Manafort's assistant? Or?
That's right. He worked closely with Paul Manafort in Ukraine for many years. Yeah. When my colleague Justin Elliott and I started looking into the inauguration, we looked at their nonprofit tax returns. We talked to people around the inauguration, and we learned from emails that were shown to us that the inaugural committee actually booked Donald Trump's hotel in Washington, D.C. And that's something that's never been seen before. A president
it's odd to begin with.
Making money from his own inaugural committee. And on top of that, the email includes a warning from one of the planners that the rate that they are being charged looks really high. And what we learned is that nonprofits like the inaugural committee are not allowed to give business to related parties at above market rates.
Okay, well, let's get all into that. But first of all, you talk about Gates. He's involved in this. But who made the final decisions? Who was the person at the top of this inaugural committee?
Well, his name is Tom Barrack. He is a California businessman, private equity executive. He actually sold the Plaza Hotel to Donald Trump back in 1988, so they have a lot of history together. He's a good friend. He's visited the White House and talked with President Trump many times. After Trump was elected, he asked Tom Barrack to spearhead this party. And so Tom Barrack and his lawyers are the ones now responding to the subpoena.
All right, so let's get back to what you're talking about. The money that was paid to the Trump International Hotel in Washington, D.C., right? That's
right.
They rented a space. Among many other spaces, the committee rented a space in this hotel. It was $175,000. That events planner that you were talking about in the emails said, wait a minute, this is more than twice what the high end of the going rate usually is. And she said that to them.
That's right.
She also said, as you implied, this is all going to be public, guys. So you guys are better. This is going to be transparent. Everybody's going to see this. So don't make any mistakes. But they did it anyway, which leads me to believe that there's a possibility that these people are just incompetent boobs rather than criminals. What's your take?
That's one way to look at it. Another way would be, the hotel had only just opened. It was an exciting new space. Maybe they felt a lot of their guests, a lot of their supporters would want to experience the hotel, and so they should offer them the chance to do that. Of course, they could go there and have coffee anyway. The most cynical possible view, I think, is that Donald Trump, and we've seen this in his history, doesn't like to get cut out of a deal. He wants to get cut in on a deal. And so perhaps they just felt that they had to book it. We know that the committee really wanted to book this space and went to some lengths to get this space for 4 solid days at a cost of $700,000 total.
So another possibility is that this man, what's his name?
Tom Barrack.
Barrack, that he and the other members of the committee wanted to ingratiate themselves with the incoming administration?
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, Tom Barrack, it has to be underlined, is a very unusual choice for an inaugural chair. Usually the person who takes a job like that is an experienced Washington hand, somebody much younger, somebody who doesn't have as much money, somebody who's maybe angling for a job in the White House or at K Street. Tom Barrack kind of already has the world. He has offices all around the world. He has access to a private jet. So we got interested in the question of what he might have to gain from taking 3 months out of his busy life to run this party. And we were shown a memo, a confidential memo from his company, Colony Capital, from February 2017, so right after the swearing in. And it describes a bunch of ways that Colony can basically profit from its access and connections.
Yeah. Well, as you said, the federal prosecutors are also looking at the possibility of foreign money having gotten into the committee, and they've discovered that some Ukrainian money might have gone through a through a middleman.
Yeah, that's right.
But that's not new. That's nothing that hasn't happened before. I remember in 2012 that some Albanian money got into the Obama administration inaugural committee. It wasn't their fault. They didn't know about it.
Right.
It was, again, through a middleman. So this is nothing necessarily a smoking gun, right?
No. I mean, every inaugural committee deserves a lot of due diligence because it presents so many opportunities of sort of cash for access, pay to play. And I'm sure this has happened before. I think what's different about this one is it's more than 2 years later and we're still talking about it. Earlier committees seem to have done their best to swiftly deal with these kind of problems. This committee, I think, by saying we're not going to limit the size of donations or who can give, by not putting a limit on how much that they would raise, I think sent a signal. So
quickly, if it's determined ultimately that the committee has violated laws or a series of laws, what are we looking at? Are we looking at heavy fines? Are we looking at jail terms?
Well, the first step would be a civil violation on the Trump hotel thing. Beyond that, a lot of the charges that the prosecutor's looking at are quite serious, such as money laundering. I should also add that the inaugural committee says it is cooperating with law enforcement. They've told me in the past that they don't believe they did anything wrong, that they did vet their donors, and that they made real efforts to abide by the law. Be that as it may, with this subpoena, it's pretty clear that prosecutors think there is something there.
So if there is something there and there are convictions, does it necessarily implicate or affect the Trump administration?
It's all in the details, but obviously it's not a good thing for them to have, in addition to the questions about the Trump campaign and the Trump organization and the Trump White House all being under some kind of investigation. Here's one more entity called Trump that is now being investigated.
All right, Ilya, very interesting stuff. You're going to keep writing on it.
Oh, sure.
Keep reading it. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much.